Thank you so much, Martha. We really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and are excited to be able to present on rural and thriving and talk about some really unique both strategies and opportunities that we see in the rural environment, and obviously also open it up for questions for folks that might have some ideas or thoughts to share. I'm Nathan Woolley. I run the Rural Community Assistance Partnership, which is a national network of nonprofit partners focused on building capacity at the local level. And for us, that means really intense work in small rural and tribal communities across the country. One of the things that we wanted to start out this discussion in is, and really dive in with Christy and Will, is to talk about the disparity that we've seen in rural communities and the lack of access to capital in many rural communities across the country, but also highlight some really unique ideas and ways that rural communities are innovating and ensuring that they get access to capital in really unique ways. One of the things we've seen, obviously, over the last decade is the decrease in the number of bank branches across the country. Just last year, the Federal Reserve announced that rural communities were hit in a much higher rate than urban communities due to bank closures. In fact, over 1,700 bank branches that closed in the last year, 14% of those in rural closed compared to the 9% that urban communities saw at that same time. And so we know oftentimes businesses, their first mode of opportunity to go after capital is to talk to a bank. But when there's not a bank branch in your community or even in any communities in your surrounding area, it can often be very difficult. And so we're constantly looking for new and innovative ways to drive capital opportunities, and thrilled to have Christy and Will here with us today to talk about some of the things that they've been doing. And so first I want to hand it off to Christy, who's doing some tremendous work in West Virginia. And Christy, please introduce yourself and then talk a little bit about some of the work that you guys are doing in West Virginia.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I'm with the Wyoming County Economic Development Authority here in southern West Virginia in Pineville. And we are kind of a non-traditional economic development authority. Most people think of economic development authorities as people that build big plants and factories, and we're in rural West Virginia, so we don't really get to do that, as 87% of our land is owned by out-of-state land holding companies that deal with timber and coal and things like that. So we decided many years ago to focus on small business and entrepreneurship. And so in 2001, we had a devastating flood that hit our county, and we were able to get some funding come down from the state of West Virginia through our Small Business Development Center, and we were able to start a small business loan fund. And through that small business loan fund, we got about a little over $2 million, and then we were able to then get some additional loan funds through USDA, through their intermediary relending program, which we actually have to pay back to them over the next few years from 2001 through 2007. And we were able to do about $3.2 million over that amount of time to small businesses in very small loans. Those were about $15,000 loans to small businesses here in the southern region of West Virginia, in a 7-county region. And we were able to expand that to now a statewide program across the state of West Virginia, and we have done $9.3 million now across the state of West Virginia. It was a truly revolving loan program from 2007 until this past year. We had not received any new funding, so it was very successful. Since the flood to 2007 and now, we look at small businesses on a very different level from any type of bank loan, community bank loan. We look at business loans as how is that application going to affect the community. So we don't look at their normal ROI or their debt to equity or just a traditional credit score. We look at the package as a whole to see how many jobs is it going to bring to the community, how is that business going to affect the community, is that business needed in the community, and things like that. So we definitely look at it in a non-traditional aspect. We take a risk. We've done loans for people that have no credit score. We've done loans for people that didn't have the best credit score, but it was a business that was needed in that community, and it's gone on to be extremely successful. So we take a very non-traditional approach in things that we have been extremely successful. So from that point, taking the initiative that we did in 2001 with the floods, and we're doing something very similar with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have an application into Appalachian Regional Commission to do loans with that, very similar, to do that across the state of West Virginia again currently. So we just take a very different approach to what banks do. We're very different from CDFIs as well. We partner with the banks, we partner with CDFIs, but we definitely take a very different approach, and we all collaborate together to make sure that we kind of fill the gaps that others cannot fill. So that's kind of where we come from and what we do.
Thank you so much. It's great to hear about the programs that you're doing, and I want to follow up with a couple questions in just a second, but want to introduce our other speaker, Will Jenkins. Will is located in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and he can tell you the story much better than I can, but he is both a serial entrepreneur, but also an investor himself. And so has been not only all across the United States, but across the world, and brings those vast experiences to his own community, and has really found a home in Pine Bluff, and has really started to help revitalize some of the community, and has some great stories and ideas about how others can do the same in rural communities. And so, Will, I'll hand it to you.
Hear me?
Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Jenkins. I moved to Pine Bluff about 5 years ago. Pine Bluff is centrally located in southeast Arkansas, and at one point back in the day, it was the Mecca. There's about 15 surrounding towns, cities, and all these people used to just come to Pine Bluff. We had a decline of population due to industry moving out. My wife and I just figured it was a great opportunity to take part in the revitalization of the Pine Bluff area. So we own several buildings here. I'm an entrepreneur, developer, investor, and the time is ripe. I mean, we've got a $350 million casino project that's taking place. We also have the downtown with the new streetscape and revitalization of that as well. And it makes it ripe for a huge comeback. And I'm really looking forward to it.
So, Will, when you think about the revitalization of Pine Bluff, how do you see your role, and how do you see the role of other potential investors in helping the community as they start to put that strategy in place?
Well, no risk, no reward. And unfortunately, a lot of people are afraid to invest their money at the present time because it's still under revitalization. I mean, we're probably maybe 2 years out from being done. But again, no risk, no reward. And I'm not that kind of person. I mean, I'm a visionary. I see what's going to take place here. I mean, this is one of the largest, longest main streets in Arkansas, period. And with the casino, all these people are going to start coming back to Pine Bluff. So what we need to do is give them businesses to shop at, businesses to come to, retail outlets, restaurants, bars. We need to revive the life that used to be here in Pine Bluff. And, you know, again, no risk, no reward. And, I mean, back in the early 90s, I owned a telecommunications company, and I was able to sell that for about $25 million. So it's about taking a risk. And to me, Pine Bluff is not a risk. So please, come invest your money at Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
This is a great opportunity for a question. I think this is Julie Davis from the Office of the Small Business Advocate. Thank you so much, Will, Nathan, and Christy. We had a question from Janice in the chat who said, many businesses will never be a good fit for VC or even angel capital, and yet could be perfectly viable, steady growth concerns for a long term. We need more and better access for these Main Street entrepreneurs. So I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about this observation. It's certainly one that our office hears from many people.
Well, one thing I would say, and then I'll let Christy and Will type in if they have thoughts on this as well, but you know, one of the really important aspects of when you think about rural is that, you know, when you go to one rural community, you've really been to one rural community. Everyone's different. There's a different situation on the ground. And ensuring and understanding, as we'll talk about, no risk, no reward, you got to understand what that risk portfolio is and what the opportunities might be. But you also have to be willing to be innovative in the way that you think about business, the way that you think about opportunities to invest. Part of it is understanding the local culture and the people in that community. And as Christy talked about, you know, they're making grants or loans in some cases where they don't have a credit history to go back on. And so you've got to think a little bit more innovatively. And what we know firsthand is that rural communities at their core are innovative. They have to be, because in many cases there's less resources, less people, less market opportunities. And so, you've got to be willing to embrace that culture. You've got to be willing to understand the culture in the community, but you've also got to be willing to look at different investment models that fit the opportunities in those communities. Christy, did you have anything to add from your perspective?
Yeah, so I think you said that great, and I'm not sure that I can add much more to that, but we have definitely taken a different approach, and we were able to do that because the monies that were revolved to our funds were grant funding, of course. So we were able to do that and take a different approach in that aspect. Some of the monies that we had were loan money, so that made it a little more complicated in that aspect. But we were still able to take the mission. Our mission was to make sure that we wanted to look out for these communities and the economic benefits of the community. And we wanted to make sure that we could fill the gaps of, what the local community banks could not do, or what the CDFI couldn't do, or, was there something missing that the, those angel investors couldn't fit in. And so that's what we wanted to fill, were those gaps. And so to fill those gaps, we had to take those risks. And we had to be the one that come in on the back end with the $15,000 loan and the $50,000 loan. On average, our loans run about $35,000. And there's so many, people, even on the banking industry, that they just really don't want to fool with the paperwork even to deal with a bank size, a loan that size. And so that's really where we feel like we kind of fit in that gap. And we've been told by so many small businesses across the state that, just that little bit is enough to at least get them started on their small business, and they can't find that amount of money, to even get started. And so many people look for, they need the $500,000 or the $1 million loans and things like that. And we can't do those type of loans. We do the much smaller loans, but they need that small amount to at least get started and get off the ground. So we feel like we just kind of fill that gap. And so I think that you said it well in the fact that you just have to be innovative in what you're looking at and how you can invest and take that extra risk.
And Will, any perspective, you've been in, multiple markets across the country, and obviously Pine Bluff has its own unique market unto itself, but how do you think about that and think about, your own investment strategy as you're considering opportunity?
Well, Pine Bluff is now becoming an opportunity zone. You have a lot of historical buildings here which enable you to take advantage of the historical tax credits. I recently acquired a theater here that was built in 1892. And I have a lot of people across the country that are watching me. Once I purchased that building, my phone just started blowing up with investors wanting to come take a look at the Pine Bluff area. So I'm really looking forward to the future and what it holds for Pine Bluff. With it being a rural town, that's going to come back. And it's going to take the mom and pops to bring it back, not the big box stores. So I'm really looking forward to it.